We've got a lot of things to go through today. Quite excited. Those of you that have been following and read last weekend's newsletter will know obviously a number of initiatives were announced in the federal budget. For some of you, that'll mean a great deal. For others of you, it may not mean much to you. So we will run through all of those in detail as we get stuck into it. So we've got the budget. Investors, we're actually finally starting to see in the latest survey, they have been quiet, starting to get more and more involved. Affordability, that's starting to become a big issue that everyone's talking about again. So we'll run through that. Home loans, I know it can be daunting for a lot of people. Very interesting. One of our key brokers, he has a saying that he tells me all the time, and he says, you know, you will spend months looking for a home loan, yet, for a holiday, yet you'll take a day or two on a home loan, you know. So it's important to understand that. We're going to run through some of the key traps and tricks with that. And of course, we'll give a first home buyer special on the budget as well. All right, before we get into questions, let's just talk through our key statistics. CoreLogic's auction results for last weekend. Again, another stellar result. I can't read that final bottom number. I think it is 79%, is it? Yes, it is. So again, fantastic result. You can see Sydney over 80s again. You've probably heard me mentioning for a long time, whenever we see more than 1,000 auctions, we call it a Super Saturday. And we're seeing that continually week after week in the two big capitals and still getting great clearance rates. So as always, I'm a broken record, very, very strong market, still seeing good price appreciation despite the large amount of listings coming through. Fantastic result. Now, someone did ask during the week a question why I don't talk about the comparisons here to last year. Ordinarily, in fact, in all my lifetime, that's been a very good thing to sort of look at the year-on-year trend. However, if you think back to this time last year, this was when the coronavirus was in full swing. So obviously these are a little bit skewed. Particularly, you're going to start seeing Melbourne's figures for last year look atrocious. And we know why. We're obviously based here in Melbourne. The tracing was terrible here, and we obviously had a major second wave. So if you are wondering and you haven't asked the question, that's why I haven't been running through them for the last month or so. You know, but towards the end of the year, we'll start looking at those and get a gauge on the trend. And one thing that we do look at, and we do sort of look at the trends over time, is the leading indicators here, which we use from realestate.com, the largest listing portal here in Australia. And you can see here, this is what they call their buyers demand index. So they monitor and effectively, you know, they talk about a few key indicators within their website and all of their sales listings that mean that there's an engaged buyer. Now, it's not an exact science. It is, you know, just an indicator. But you can see there, it's been relatively flat for the last month, albeit tracking up. The biggest thing that we're seeing, and there's Victoria's results as well, the biggest trend that we're seeing is there's starting to become a widening gap in terms of the focus on apartments versus houses. Historically, you can see on that line, they're both nationally and here in the state of Victoria, that there hasn't been a huge difference between them. And that started to really open up. Now, what does that mean? Look, it's very hard, again, to understand. I think when we talk about affordability, typically, you know, apartments or, as I mentioned here, units are significantly cheaper than freestanding homes. And so I think as prices go up, we're starting to realise, or people are starting to realise that their dream of the great quarter-acre block with a three-bedroom house is outside of their affordability, at least at this initial stage. That's why we're seeing more and more people focusing on apartments. We obviously love apartments. I own all apartments. I think they're a fantastic investment. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Rental, as I mentioned before, investors starting to creep back and feeling a bit more positive. They've been very quiet the last 12 months. You can see here rental demand again spiking up a little bit. And also here in Victoria. It has been relatively flat nationally. Interestingly, again, I think when we drill into the stats, both the ACT and Victoria have seen some stronger growth over the start of the year, which you can see by this graph here. Victoria's going up and the national one as well. Most of the other states have been relatively flat this year. And I think that's pretty much driven, particularly here in Victoria, by the fact that, we didn't get the same sort of surge as most of the rest of the country did, sort of that, end of the third quarter last year, because we were still locked down. So I think that's what we're just really seeing coming through here. We've heard the latest in the federal budget that it doesn't look like the migration is going to start again until next year. What impact is that going to have on the rental markets? Look, I don't think it's going to make any change. That's all been factored in. We haven't had migration for 12 months. I definitely think that we're not going to see any changes in terms of things getting worse or going down. But most definitely, once that opens up, I think we're really, really going to see some pressure put on these major capital city markets that have been struggling. There's no doubt about it over the last 12 months from the loss of all the students and the migration. All right, I've been going on for a fair amount there. So I want to ask everyone a question just before we get into answering all of your questions. I want to know, what is more important? Is it information or knowledge? So the reason I ask these questions, this is very much what today's session is all about, asking your questions. And the reason that we do that is, someone tell me, one of the guys, I can't see your faces now with my new setup. Who wants to answer the question for everyone on the line?
Knowledge.
Good. All right. I heard all of you jump out. So fantastic. It is knowledge, of course. So the reason why this is important, and what we aim to try and get out of today's session for all of you on the line, as always, as I said, this is about you guys. So, get involved, make sure you're not on mute, have a listen through what we're talking about, ask your questions. And the reason why is that knowledge is most important, because it's, being able to understand all of that information, which is just organized data, either through experience, like all of us on the line today, or at least here on the panel, sorry, I should have said, or through education, and that's really what's key, because there is so much information out there. So it's very, very easy to be swayed in the wrong direction by misinformation, fake news, not very credible sources, and not really understand what it is. So you need to have knowledge to be able to filter through all of that information, to work out what is most important, what you should be listening to. And really the aim of today, and the aim of what we do here as a business with Salvo, is to help you create your own database of actionable knowledge. So when you see certain indicators occur, what you're planning to do, what you should be doing, so you can capitalize and make the most of that. All right, those of you that don't know me, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo, and I've helped create more than 11,000 homes for people. On the panel, we're joined today by Greg Arbeck, Jack Jian, and Loukas Karas. These are your experts. I'll be hosting, and they're going to be answering all of your questions. We've got a ton of questions that have already come through. Those of you that aren't sure how to get involved, really straightforward. If you haven't used Zoom before, there's two options. You can raise your hand if you're brave, and we will see you live, and you can answer the guys. Perhaps the way that everyone prefers to do it is to put in the Q&A. I can see I've got a screen down here, my computer. I've seen a ton of questions already come through. I will be trying to read through those as the guys are answering your questions and ask them. Obviously, if you can, try and keep the questions a little bit more generic, so they're useful for everyone on the line. If you do have something more specific, don't worry, we will hang around at the end and try and answer those for you. If you've got to go and we run out of time, then we will reach out to you after this. So if you are, obviously, there is two options, I believe. You can ask your questions anonymously, or let us know who you are. If you do ask anonymously and we don't answer it, unfortunately, I can't get back to you because I don't know who it is. But feel free to do anonymous if you're scared and you don't want us to read your name out. By all means, that is perfectly fine. If I didn't mention it at the top of the session, if you are listening to us live from Facebook, welcome. Unfortunately, if you do want to get involved and answer your questions and have the guys answer them live, we are going to need you to join us next week via Zoom. If you do drop any questions on the recording, or however it is that it comes through on Facebook, we will have a look at them after the session and come back to you. But really the best way is join us live next time. The links are everywhere on our website, on the Facebook page, Instagram page, everywhere to register. And that's really where I think you'll get the most value. All right, so let's get stuck into it. The questions. I want to ask the first question. For the last week or so, Greg has been lucky enough. I grabbed onto him because he was the first guy I saw on Tuesday. and said, let's watch the budget tonight. Let's read through the papers. Let's study it. We have attended a ton of sessions, both virtual, webinars. We've been to breakfasts, lunches, you name it. We've gone through all of the information that's gone through and really tried to break it down and keep it simple for all of you on the line and really just focus on what it means for homeowners, aspiring homeowners, first home buyers, everyone. So, Greg, it's been a fun week, has it not?
Absolutely, yeah.
And you look pretty tired. I think there was a few times you said to me, do you ever stop? Can we have a break? And I think even to the point that you suggested the amount of reading I was making you do of boring budget papers, you needed reading glasses at one point, didn't you?
You know, with my attention deficit disorder, it's a bit hectic for me, you know.
No, don't worry. I noticed that. I'll give you a break next year. Jack, Loukas, if you ever were going to look for another job, do it before May, because I'm picking on one of you guys to come on the whirlwind tour that Greg and I have done over the last 7 days. So, Greg, there was a ton of useful or insightful information. We even attended a breakfast that was interesting, hearing Josh Frydenberg, the current treasurer, and Peter Costello, the longest serving and perhaps arguably the most successful treasurer, go head to head. Very interesting. But really, let's focus on real estate. Greg, how many key takeaways were there for home buyers or aspiring home buyers?
Yeah, I think Loukas will go through some other stuff, but the key things that I pulled out of it were that there's now incentives for both young and old. And when we look at it in that light, first of all, we've had these, for the younger people, we've had what they call the first home saver scheme. That's the one thing. And what they've done with that is they've increased that from a cap. Now, just to put that into perspective, you could withdraw $30,000 from your superannuation fund and pay only 15% tax. If you put that into a savings account, you'd pay a nominal 32% tax. So they've increased that threshold to 50,000, which allows younger people then to be able to save quicker towards their deposit by using their super.
Okay, so those of you that might have been confused with the numbers that Greg went through, and I can see, John, you asked a question just then about it. Let me just make that really simple for you. Young people are always telling us it's so hard to save for a deposit. Now, what this scheme does is it's really, really simple. It effectively halves your tax rate on any savings that you want to do towards a deposit. So, as Greg said, instead of paying your normal tax rate that the ATO is so kind to take it from you, you're able to put that money into your super fund. It gets held there and it gets taxed at only 15%. So that is a huge benefit. And Greg, what's the cap it's been increased to? From
30 to 20, from 30 to 50, so 20,000 increase.
Okay, and that's a per annum amount or is it a total amount?
Yeah, that's per annum, yeah.
Okay, so look, that's big money, guys. You add through the difference in halving the tax rate on that. That's a big thing. So that's one of the key. It's been there as a policy. Obviously, the increasing of that cap, I think, becomes very relevant given how many of you have been telling us how hard it is in terms of affordability and particularly with prices going up as they have. All right, Greg, what was the second one?
The other positive for first homeowners and youngsters is that they've increased the number by a further 10,000 for people that can benefit from what they call the first home loan deposit scheme. So what that actually does, it allows a person to buy an off-the-plan or a new house, and instead of having to take mortgage insurance as such, the government essentially stands as that surety, allowing them to get into something a bit quicker and keeping their overheads down. And they've increased that by an additional 10,000 people that can qualify for that particular plan that's been running for a while.
Okay.
Can I just step in?
Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of questions about that. So, Loukas, maybe break it down a bit more for us.
One of the things is it is for low and middle income earners. So you have to make sure as a single, you earn no more than 125,000 per year to qualify for this. And as a couple, no more than 200,000 per year. And also there is a cap on what you will purchase. And for Victoria and Geelong, sorry, for Melbourne and Geelong, is capped at 600,000 and 375,000 for the rest of Victoria.
Okay, so that is the amount that you borrow or the purchase price of the property?
Purchase price of the property.
Okay, so very much, I guess, focused towards first home buyers. Great scheme there because mortgage insurance can be anywhere from sort of $5,000 up to $10,000, $12,000, I think, on these types of loans. So I think that's a big boost if you imagine how long it might take you to save that extra $10,000. And Loukas, you mentioned you had a buyer. I think you had a few buyers last year that got approved for this scheme and it brought off you recently, haven't you?
Correct. That is 100% accurate. If I may go back one step, sorry. The First Home Super Saver scheme that Gregory mentioned before, it is very, very important here to mention that the ATO notes eligibility is assessed on individual basis. Now, this means that siblings, couples, or friends can both access the super contribution to purchase the same property. So this is a very big plus.
So effectively, if you buy together, you can double your power.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So this is very
Greg,
big,
what are you
important.
doing? Come on, Loukas is outflanking you here. I've taken you on a whirlwind tour for the last 7 days.
Well, as you know, you asked the key points, and then we can let Loukas elaborate, which he loves to do.
I think, in fairness, you're probably pretty tired. You have been mentioning to me that the early mornings and late nights have been taking the toll, plus doing your day job. All right, Greg, give us the third takeaway.
So just from that, we talked about young, and now we talk about sort of the older sort of retirees.
Now you can say that word.
I can say that, except
because you are almost in that age bracket, aren't you?
We're getting there, So try not to think about it. But for instance, downsizers, people that have older people that want to get into, they've sold their properties, they want to get into something smaller and stuff like that. What the government has done is firstly reduce the age that becomes applicable. So it used to be 65. They're going to reduce that down to 60. What that actually means is that if you sell your home, you can put in up to 300 per person. So even if you held the home jointly, each of those individuals can put in up to 300,000 into their superannuation, which is a huge boost in terms of them saving tax and stuff. So that's another, main thing is that has been there for a while, but the age of which it becomes applicable is now going to be reduced by 5 years. Okay.
Brian, I saw you asking a question about that. Hopefully Greg's just clarified that. If not, just drop another question in. So Greg, are we expecting to see, as these roll out, are you expecting that this might mean that, perhaps people might downsize a little bit earlier since they can get this highly concessional, tax rate now on their super earnings?
I think that's also the hope, is also then to try and get more, when you look at the data, that you might get more properties coming on the market, which could then ease the shortage that we're currently seeing. So I think they're hoping that might help. People go and say, hang on, let's sell our home, put that money into super. It's tax effective. We're getting something better, and it in theory should bring more stock onto the market.
Yeah. So I think whilst this is obviously a policy which directly appears to be focused on the older generations, those of you that are first home buyers or in the younger generation, what Greg said there was really, really important. So this is designed to assist some of the older generation to downsize earlier. And what that will do is help free up some more stock and will hopefully lead to, there being more stock, more houses, and those of you that have missed out auction after auction, hopefully, the prices aren't going to come down. There's no doubt that's not going to change. But with more stock, instead of competing with 20, 30, 40 people, you might be competing with 10. And hopefully that means you're going to be able to get into your new home sooner. So good. All right, Greg, wrap it up for us. Give us the fourth and final takeaway.
The other one is pension loan schemes. Now, essentially,
all right, now you're on the pension, aren't you, Greg? So this would make sense to you.
Right. So a pension loan scheme. So you get pensioners that actually have got a lot of equity sitting in their houses, but they don't have a big enough income coming out of a pension to support themselves. What this scheme does is allow them to borrow against their property, stay in the property, so it's almost like a reverse mortgage, and they can boost their fortnightly income by up to 150% of what they're currently getting by borrowing against the equity in their properties.
Okay.
Now, what this also does, there's no loan repayments at all. There is an interest component, and the way the government looks at it is then when obviously everybody passes away, but when they pass away, then at that particular
Nice
stage.
and morbid for us, Greg. Thanks.
So when that's at that particular point, the interest component is then repaid back, but it allows pensioners to lift their standard of living by using unlock. You want to put it in simple terms: unlock the equity in their homes without having to repay loans while they're still alive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry to butt in. Sorry, but I wasn't lucky enough to be invited to any of your sort of, adventures that you did for the tax purpose and the budget. But I do have one new thing that came on, and it really caught my mind. I think we have to mention it to all our listeners, and that is a family home guarantee, which is for single parents. Single parents traditionally got the lowest home ownership of any household. So now with the new budget, single parents can purchase a property with a deposit of 2%. Now, you don't need to be a first home buyer either to access this. And they will do 10,000 guarantees, and it'll be available for the next 4 financial years. Once again, it is means tested, like I said before, for the low income earners, up to $125,000. But what's important to note that child support payments are not calculated in this 125,000 cap.
All right. Those of you that found that complicated, it is. And if it doesn't mean anything to you, we will have a recording. Read through it again, because there's a lot of great information there from the guys. 4 key takeaways that we learned from the budget, and I think the general public consensus is agreed on that. So really focus in on those, work out what it means for you, and see if that changes your position and where you are. All right, let's change speed a little bit. We've been going on about the budget for a while, and I know that we're getting close to time. So affordability, obviously a big issue at the moment. Prices have been going up and up and up over 2021. Jack, tell us a little bit about where we are and some of the stats here, and what this means for affordability generally for everyone out there.
Yes. Affordability is always like a big issue, like you said, James. Before we're talking about affordability, everyone has already noticed that this year, 2021, the housing price has increased rapidly. Just give everybody like the sort of the figures and say how rapid the price increase through the April, which is the last month. So the April, the national residential property value increased 1.8%, which is the 6th time the average monthly movement in the property price in the last 10 years. In other words, turning into the price point, which means, for example, the typical, the median price for the typical home in Australia nationwide, in the 1 month, the price rose $11,000. So that's the factor about the price increase. But we're talking about affordability. We have to talk about the income, because that's the base. We're talking about the affordability in nationwide. Let's say the 3 different income level, which we identify: the low income earner, medium income earner, and a high income earner. Nationwide, and for the higher income earner, they can able to purchase the 85.1% of the residential property. For the medium income people, they are able to afford to pay the 57.1% of the residential property. But for the lower income earner, they could only afford to pay 70.6% of the residential property nationwide.
Okay, so effectively, the takeaway is the rich can buy almost everything.
Yes.
The medium wealth can buy half, and the lower income can buy about a quarter of the homes out there.
It's not 100% accurate, James, because in a different capital city, we say the figure is different because when we were talking about nationwide, but for example, we all live in Melbourne. That's typically saying we are all the medium level income earner. I hope I'm higher, but obviously not. And in Melbourne, if you're the medium income earner, you could afford to pay about 43.7% of the property, but you could only able to pay 29% of the house, but you can pay 70% of the unit. So which means if you're the medium income earner, we can't say you will able to purchase the 50% of the house. No, that's not right.
All right, so that's a really interesting point. Those of you that didn't get that, we've been harping on about it for decades. There is a huge price differential, across the country between freestanding homes and attached homes, apartments, medium density, townhouses, and the like. And those of you that perhaps have your sights set on a freestanding home, if you've got the budget for it, fantastic. If you don't have the budget, stop delaying, change tactic, and start thinking about attached homes, apartments, townhouses, and the like, because prices are not going to go down. They're going to continue to go up. And I think what Jack just gave you there, I don't remember his exact stats, but he said, if we look at it at the high level, it looks pretty tough. If we break it down, that middle income earner, between how much can they buy across the board nationally, and then we have a look at it, how much can they buy in terms of the attached housing stock, that goes up significantly. So I think that's a really, really important factor. We always talk about this, the dreams of the quarter acre block are fantastic. And if you've got the budget, fantastic. But if you don't, and you don't believe you're going to win lotto next week, then stop dreaming, refocus, have a chat with us and talk about how you can start that journey in attached housing. Across here, Greg's just moved into, an apartment here. I think those of you that have been here for a long time, we talked about it a few times. So it doesn't matter what stage of life you're at. And Greg, you prefer it. You've been loving it, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought I would hate it because I've always been lived out on the peninsula, on the big areas and farms. And in theory, it sounds great, but actually downsizing and actually being in the center of everything is awesome. Yeah.
We're even going to go, Greg's going to take me on one of his exercise routines. So those of you that follow us on the socials will know, we've been trying to take a bit of a review around the area here, show you some behind the scenes footage. So I ran Greg ragged for the last 7 days. Next week, he's going to take me on a lunchtime workout. Yeah. So we will film that. Maybe not. If it's a total disaster, I'm going to destroy the film, but he's going to take me to some of his favorite workout spots and put us through our paces. All right, look, I'm conscious of time, but when we talk about affordability, what other impacts has this had on the broader market? I know investors have been really, really quiet for the last 12 months. But Greg, apparently the affordability is actually meaning that they're getting a bit more positive about the market.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen investors have almost went cold for almost a year, but now that we've got local people that are looking, their value in their homes have increased, means their wealth has increased, means they've got additional equity. Interest rates are crazily low, and they are now going, oh, hang on, let's leverage the equity we've got to get into investment property. So the stats are showing that there is an increase of people that are looking to invest using their properties to leverage themselves into investment properties. So it's looking quite promising, which is quite exciting.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, just as I said before, I'm conscious of time. So Loukas, bring it home for us. Home loans, those of you that don't know, that is part of what we do here. And increasingly, particularly at the moment, when everyone's getting, stressed about trying to find a place to live, they're getting more and more, concerned or feeling that they're being rushed and being thrown lingo. Obviously not by us, probably when they go to another broker or direct to the bank. We pride ourselves, obviously, in talking you through everything. But it can lead to some serious consequences, I guess, down the track and perhaps take some of the shine and enjoyment off purchasing a new home. So, Loukas, tell us what exactly are people feeling out there, and then perhaps give us, the top 3, 4, 5 pieces of lingo and what they mean for everyone.
Look, almost 70% of Victorians are saying that confusing financial lingo, as you said, it's a barrier to home ownership or refinancing. So some of the sort of terms that people might not be aware of, comparison rate. A lot of people are confused. So this rate includes all fees and charges related to your loan. So if the lender isn't charging you any fees, the comparison rate should be the same as the advertised interest rate. So that's sort of quite important to know. Now,
so I think that's one of the most important ones. I know we've talked about that before, but this is, you'd be surprised that this day and age, the banks still trick you. You wouldn't think they'd be allowed to after, 5 million royal commissions, but, they advertise a headline rate, but then there's all the extra fees. So, those of you that have been around for a long time will remember the steak knife ads, but wait, there's more. The banks still believe in that, don't they, Loukas? And they've got all these hidden fees, and that comparison rate, what does that do? That actually takes into account all these additional fees, does it?
Correct. Another one that sort of people forget about is a discharge fee. So this fee is charged when you pay off your loan early or refinance. So this is another fee that a lot of people forget. Now let's look at something that everybody loves, honeymoon rate. So this is an introductory rate or offer to entice customers. However, customers beware, this only lasts usually 6 to 12 months. And then your fees after that could be totally different. So always look closely what the fees will be after your honeymoon period. And I'll go off with my favorite one, which is loyalty tax. Now, before you all go off.
Loyalty tax. So you get taxed for your loyalty. Is that what you're going to tell us?
Yeah. Look, it's not tax per se, but look, we all know that lenders will offer promotions to entice new customers. But what does that mean for existing customers that have been for them for years? It means zero. The existing customers, by staying with your lender and not considering refinancing options, you could be paying loyalty tax. So shop around, refinance, and get the best deal for you.
All right, good. All right, let's just call time there for the time being. As I said, we will hang around after the end of this session. I just want to give a few closing comments. So those of you that are time pressed, give me another 2 minutes of your attention, if you will, and then I'll let you go. If you do have to run off, no worries. I'll send you the recording of today's session. And those of you that have got plenty of time and want more questions will hang around at the end. So look, the way that I see it, as I asked you the question at the top of this session, what is more important, information or knowledge? Hopefully you've got a bit more knowledge after listening to a very insightful discussion and Q&A that we've just had. So the way that I see it, where to from here for you? You've really got 3 options. You can do nothing. That's easy. Don't change anything, but let me just remind you, when you don't make changes, don't expect anything to change on the downside. So if you've been looking for the last 10 years and you still haven't bought a home, then don't expect anything to change if you don't make a change yourself. The second thing you can do is take on board what we've discussed today, take on board what we've talked about, how important it is to have that knowledge and that understanding, and go out there and do it yourself. The alternative and the third option that is what I really, really encourage, and I hope that you all want to do, is come with us. Let us help you on that journey. Let us impart all of our experience and expertise with you and help you at whatever stage the journey is. So, those of you that are a bit confused, it doesn't matter whether you're just looking to rent your first home or you're looking to buy your 100th investment property. We can help you along the journey in all of those aspects. So how do we help you? What is the most logical next step? Really, really simple. let's get together. Let's have a one-on-one chat. We can do that face-to-face. We can do it virtually, or we can just do it in the old-fashioned way on the old telephone. So what I've done, I've set aside time in everyone's diaries over the next 5 days and dedicated this only to be booked out for these sessions. A lot of you complain they get booked out and you can't get your favorite time. They do, but I've made sure no one else can take this except for these sessions. So jump on and book in your time. It's pretty straightforward if you're wondering what does this involve. We're talking maybe 15, 20 minutes, depends how much you want to chat. And really we're just talking about, anything that you didn't felt we covered today you want to know. In the market generally, we talk about where, what you've done over the last few years, what you're hoping to achieve over the next, 3, 4, 10 years. And then really we sort of talk about how we might be able to assist you in that journey. Now, we're not going to be able to help everyone. That's just the reality. Not everyone is going to be a good fit for us, but ideally, if you're on today's session and you've enjoyed this, then it is going to be a good fit for you, because everything we've talked about today is what we want to get in. We want to help you. We want to get you there to that next step in your journey. So in order to be the right fit, you've got to have stayed awake in today's session. That's the number one rule. The rest of it, you've got to be focused. You've got to be motivated. You've got to be prepared to take action and do that stuff. Don't be afraid of hard work. Often we have people that say, I haven't been able to achieve anything over the last 10 years. Well, let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's either because you've been unrealistic on your expectations or you've just been waiting for it to be handed to you on a silver plate. It isn't easy. You do need to put in the effort. So they're the kind of people that we can help. How do you do it? If you haven't already noticed, Greg dropped it in the chat earlier on. Click on that link. You can book straight away from there. Grab your favorite time. I've already seen a few notifications popping up down the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, your web browser, when you logged into this webinar, if you are on Zoom, obviously here, should have been redirected to that booking page. That's how I think most of you do it quickly before I get to there. And lastly, if you don't have your diary or you're not sure, you want to think about it, we'll send you a follow-up email after today's session with the link there that you can take action. So that is it for today's session. We've gone, I can't see the time, I'm imagining 10 minutes over time. So I apologize for that. Hopefully you were able to hang around. I can see here there's still a ton of you online. So thank you very much for your time and dedication. We love doing this every week. So from me and all of the panel, thank you. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again next week, next month. Same time, 2:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time here Wednesday. Join us, Facebook or Zoom. Thanks very much, everyone.